Ladies and gentlemen, I would want you to be introduced to the first course in history that actually covers how ChatGPT works properly. This is the first episode of a 5-episode course on how ChatGPT works step by step. Now, here you see in front of you the largest datasets known to man. What we're talking about here is specifically the size of datasets, how they're made, why we need them. We'll get into the training and into the creation of the whole thing later on, but for now, we'll just focus on the dataset. So for ChatGPT, right, apparently they have a dataset of 500 GB. So what is this dataset? Let me explain to you pretty simply. All AI models, all of them, need a dataset. We haven't found a better way to do it other than use a dataset for now. We need a dataset so that the AI, so that the artificial intelligence machine could have something to learn off of. So in the same way that a baby can go through life, right, learning stuff from experiences, and it's a system where the baby does something, it gets hurt because it touched the pan, right? It touched the little pan that was burning hot, and it realized, okay, that's bad, don't do that. And then it ate a cupcake, and it realized that's good, do that. Or like, it's tasty, do that. And the same way, it's for a data set, except it shortcuts the process of having to live 18 years before you can actually think like an adult, and immediately cuts to the chase and sort of learns off of the data. Now, for ChatGPT, it's obviously text data. There are many different, like if you're talking about an object detection model, which is supposed to, in Teslas, for example, there's an AI which detects objects to like know when to stop the car, know when to move it, like that autopilot system. So that object detection model needs a data set. This data set is derived for specifically for the object detection model it consists of many images of just like stuff in it, and the object detection model has to realize, like, it's gonna draw a square somewhere, right? This is the system, right? Draws a square somewhere. I'll explain how it does that, how it calculates whether that's square or not, and if it detects the object in question, and if like in the square it's detected like a car, right? It gets sort of rewarded like a child would with that cupcake, right? And through the use of a loss function, and we'll get into that in the later episodes, but basically it needs to detect that and kind of get rewarded by that, or make a mistake and be like, no, that's a tree. You said, like the AI said, in this box there is a car, but there's just a tree. Nope, that's wrong. And then it gets sort of punished for that. We'll explain that with the loss function in later episodes, so on. But yeah, and the data set consists of a lot of images, millions of them, millions of images for this Tesla object detection model. Now, for ChatGPT, I'm assuming that you're probably a little bit more into AI models if you want to figure out how ChatGPT works, and you kind of know that the data set is needed. So, how like, what is this data set? Let's break everything down. It is, let's say 500 GB, as was with the ChatGPT dataset. It's a bunch of text. It's lots and lots of text, and if you ask ChatGPT itself, it's going to say, my dataset consists of articles, books, interviews, so on. Interviews that have been done online, and like their transcripts, movie scripts, literally everything that you can find. This is just raw text data. How did they get that? They didn't like OpenAI employees were not paid $120,000 per year to go and just like get that online, copy pasting text online. They built programs, right? They coded up using import requests, right, in Python, and just built some scraping programs which get data online. So for example, I can give you what is that name? Web crawler or something like that. I'm not completely sure what it's called right now. Crawler or something like that. It's basically a big service by Amazon which gives data for free, and I'm 100% sure that ChatGPT, like OpenAI, have gotten their data from there. They also just scrape it from like anything that's publicly available. Obviously, they do it legally. They don't just steal stuff. But if it's publicly available, they'll take it. And it's not really, like, you cannot really copyright them if they steal your book, for example, because ChatGPT does not generate the entire book. It can only, like, say certain parts, and even then there's restrictions on it to not be able to say that thing. But okay, this is the interesting part about these datasets. They give you all this text, and then there's also programs to filter this text out. So there's, like, for example, if you go and copy paste this YouTube video page, you will see it, like, and then paste it into a text, and, like, just do this right now. Control A on, like, I'm assuming you're on a desktop watching this video. Just click Control A on the entire YouTube, like, page, and then Control C, and then open text document and paste it there, Control V, and you'll see that it's just like home, and then page, and then like something like that, like weird just text, right? So that's what they also got. So they have to clean that text out, and after they clean the text out and it's coherent, it's like sentences, like over here, as you can see, then after that they feed it to the model. We'll explain the training process, everything, but here's the phenomenon, is that you think actually that ChatGPT understands what you're saying, that ChatGPT or Bard or whatever, Perplexity AI understands what you're talking about. When it's like you say, do you understand what I am talking about? Like, for example, you ask it a random question. I'm trying to make a website, right, that has this and this and that in it. Do you understand my request? It's going to say, I understand your request. But that's not true. It doesn't understand it at all. It doesn't understand what you're saying at all. It's like Chinese box. Like there was this concept that explained how AI can never truly understand what you're talking about. It's this like Chinese box where basically here's the AI, it's in a box, it's in a room, and there's a person who speaks Chinese and gives it like cards, and like, okay, let's say you're a human, right, in this box. So here you are, you're the human inside the box, right? You don't speak Chinese, you don't know any of it. You just have the alphabet here. You know the system to writing the text. You know, like, that you're supposed to, like, when this Chinese person, right, gives you a paper, you translate it into English, and then translate it back through like whatever like alphabet you have, right, on your, like, you're in this room, right, and you have like an alphabet that's helping you to communicate with this Chinese person, and then you translate it to Chinese. You say something in English, write it down, translate it to Chinese, give them that letter back, and you're just in this room. You don't actually understand the Chinese that they're speaking, but you're translating it to English. Same concept with AI, specifically with ChatGPT. So what does it do? The AI system, it's like you can imagine it as like a machine. You put in text through it. It doesn't actually understand what the text is. It makes your text, like, makes numbers out of your text, converts it to numbers, does a bunch of math with it, and then generates some kind of numbers back, and then translates that to just alphabet English. And then you see that sentence saying, I understand what you're talking about. It's like, as I described it here, typically in this situation, when I see this text, I have to write this text. It's like, sort of, I saw that, I will write this. And it's a series of mathematical equations that lead to that. Now, there's a system that goes on, right? When I see this sentence, the AI says, I will give out this thing. We will go into how it actually does the whole calculation later. But as you may already know, in machine learning models, when the neural network is first like initialized, if you don't know what a neural network is, then you're in trouble for listening to this. But neural network is like in every AI model they have a neural network. Hopefully you already understand these basic concepts right now. So in every model they have a neural network, and the weights and biases are always random. You may know this already, but if you don't, I will explain the neural network concept very simply. like very basically. You'll have to probably go and find somewhere else to cover that, or maybe I'll cover that in a separate episode, just not related to the course. These are like weights. These little connections, they're weights, and they're also such thing as biases that just like are additional little things. Like you can imagine a brain neural network, like in your brain, the neurons and everything, connections. It's the same thing here, and each and every dot here that you see, this little circular dot, is a function that does something, some kind of math. And the weights are actually like sort of like probabilities / connections. Like, for example, how likely is a neuron, a node of these, to fire? And so when we just initialize first this neural network, the bias right here and the weights, all the weights on all these connections are random. That's standard practice, to just have it as randomized, which is why when you give it that text and it's not trained, it's just random, it will just give you gibberish. It will just give you blah blah blah, right? Maybe it will give you English, but it won't, like, it's going to be incoherent, it's going to be BS. So which is why we have a data set to train it. We take this data set, we take text examples from it, and then we feed it to this neural network so that, like this 500 GB, right? Let's take one example, one little shred of it, one little paragraph out of this big data set, right? And put it into our model, let it process that, and then we're gonna see, wow, this is gibberish. But see, this is the part where it gets interesting, because when we extract this text, we also extract the text after it in a separate thing, which is going to be the actual like true text. Let me explain to you. So let's say you see a page in a book, right? There's this text, and there's this next paragraph text, right? This next paragraph and the first paragraph. If I cover this up, you can't see this, right? I covered up with my hand. You read this. You are the AI in this case. You read this, you think it through thoroughly, and by analyzing this, you predict what comes next, like what the next paragraph is after this one. And that is how AI models are trained, like ChatGPT. So it's supposed to understand what's hidden, what's next, what's coming next, based on this thing. So it looks into that, and this gets into autoregressiveness. I will explain that a little bit later, but yeah, it has to basically predict what comes next. So like, for example, if like, go right now into ChatGPT, open a new tab and just go to ChatGPT and give it some kind of abrupt sentence. And for example, but although, okay, I won't write it out. But although Marcus Aurelius was a great leader, he struggled with many, and then just pause it there, send the sentence. See how it will possibly, like ChatGPT will possibly try to fill up your sentence. It's not going to be like, huh, what are you talking about? It's going to be like, with many things in his reign, and so on and so on, and try to fill in the gap, because that's what it has been trained like. It's like, when I see this, I have to guess the right thing that comes next, the missing thing. And so the reason why I can text back and forth with you as if it's like in a conversation is because it got a lot of conversational data as well. In that big data set, there was also a lot of conversational data, right, fed into it. And so when you say, hello, how are you, it, in its data set before, when it was being trained, predicted that when you say, hello, how are you, the next sentence is, I'm good, how are you? And which is why it responds like that. But of course, like, since they've tweaked the data set, it's, instead of saying I'm good, how are you, it's like, I'm an AI model, I don't have feelings, blah blah. And so that's the next sentence is supposed to predict. And so when you generate that, when you write that right now to ChatGPT, it's going to be like, okay, I'm an AI model, I don't have feelings, so on, because that's what it's been rewarded for in the data set when it was being trained. So we take this, right? We take this batch, it processes it, it generates some kind of text, and we see how accurate it was with this next paragraph, as we were saying here. So like, imagine you're the AI model again. boom, boom, boom. This is the text right there, and this is right there. But you don't see this. You don't see this. It's just hidden. It's like in the background. And you are looking at this text, you're thoroughly thinking, and then you generate some text. Thoroughly thinking is your neural network firing, right? And then you generate some kind of text. And then there's a system that looks how accurate this text was to this text, like how accurately you guessed it. And the more accurately you are, the more your weights and biases will stay the same. So like if you were absolutely inaccurate, then the system, like the training system that we will explain later, will go through and correct your weights and biases and all this stuff in a mathematical way so that you could be right next time. But if you're not, like let's say you're absolutely on the dot, nothing changes. If you're just a little bit off, something changes. But yeah, like that. The reason why we need the dataset is so that it could learn basics. And so let me go down here. It's like the reason why we need the dataset is so that it can learn how to speak and how to respond. And it's like typically when people say this, I have to write this text. It doesn't actually understand your prompt. It just says, I understand your prompt, because that's what it's been rewarded for in its training phase. So now let's look at this. So hopefully I explained it pretty well. There's also another analogy I had here. It's like giving some text to it in the training phase as sort of like half the movie being seen, and so the AI model has to guess what the next half of the movie is going to be, and that's like the next text. But yeah, hopefully I explained that well enough about the data set and the importance of it, is because it has to learn that when I'm given this text, I respond this way. Now, the model learns semantics, relation of words to other sentences, etc., and yeah, so on. Then AutoRegressive models. You can go look that up, but basically you can imagine like an AI model before ChatGPT has been invented, like an AutoRegressive AI model which predicts what's the weather going to be tomorrow based on the past. So basically, let's say we had let's say August, we had September, we had November, and now it has to predict what's going to be like the weather dates of December based on August. And so like we see that it's like been very hot, then it goes down, and so or like the 30 days, right? We're just gonna draw a bunch times 30, right? 30 like weather points. Oh, it's been like 30 degrees, right? It's been like 40 degrees. It's been like 35, and so on. And then we go here and it's been like, oh, it's been like 25. Oh, it's been like 19. It's been like 11, right? And then here we go, it's been like 10, 5, so on. And then here, based on this, it has to predict what comes next. That's the autoregressiveness that we've talked about already. It's that like it has to predict what's going to be next based on what we've already seen. So yeah, that's that. Let me, 1 second. Okay. So yeah, that's autoregressive, by the way. And it's the same thing with ChatGPT. It looks at your text and it's kind of the past values. And so it's supposed to predict by those past values what comes next after that. So yeah, it's also an autoregressive model because of that. Now, what else do I have to tell you about datasets? Also, the way they add restrictions is that when you say like, give me like something inappropriate, tell me how to do cocaine, make cocaine, right? And then it's gonna say no, that's inappropriate, this and this and that. Why does it say that? It's because in its data set, when it got the sentence "make me cocaine," the right sentence, the sentence after that was no, it's inappropriate. I cannot give you as an AI model. I'm helpful. It's because like people of OpenAI have made it that way, so that like they've put that sentence there themselves, right? So that when ChatGPT reads this and has to predict the next sentence, it predicts this, and it does not tell you how to do crack. So yeah, And it's a very high likelihood that it does know how to do it, but it's just not going to tell you because the data set is very huge, and it's not going to just, like, there's a high probability that there is a cocaine recipe in there, but it's just not going to tell you because of this whole sentence prediction thing. So yeah, and that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah, it's the case of typically in this situation when I have this sequence of text, I have to write this text because in my training process they said that I have to write this sort of text. And that's pretty much it. That's datasets. It's quite a simple concept. I don't have to get into any programmatics. I can just draw here and draw nice, neat stuff over here and enjoy myself. By the way, training on such a huge data set requires beastly computers and probably like a month of time. You're not going to be able to train this on your own computer, which is why when people say it's open source, it's easy to do, it's free. Trust me, from personal experience, I'm trying to make my own model. It's not easy. You cannot train it on your own computer. I've even tried to connect to Google Colab, right? Like a service that Google provides to be able to connect to their computers. Even using a computer that cost over $10,000, I still could not get my model to train because it crashed. And my data set is not even huge. Think about this then. They have to use supercomputers, multiple of them, to redistribute training across the whole thing. So don't think it's that easy. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next episode.